Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Dave Candido.
And we're coming at you with 1973's American Graffiti, the all-American experience. And Dave, I got to ask you this. Where were you in 62?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't even a sparkle or gleam in my father's eye, probably more than likely. He was such a fuck up.
but yeah, that's the old tagline there. I got like that double pack one that's got American Graffiti and the second one, more American Graffiti.
Okay.
So there is that sequel, and the sequel's actually kind of interesting. It gets very experimental filmmaking in it, but it's kind of cool because of that.
Is that also a George Lucas film, the second one?
He produced it, and I think he wrote the treatment. He did the classic George Lucas thing where I feel like he writes a one-page summary and then it's like, somebody else write this for me.
Yeah.
I hate writing,
Yeah, I didn't know. I think I forgot. I think I knew at one point in time, and then it wasn't until we started talking about it that I looked it up. I'm like, oh, George Lucas did this. And it was totally out of my mind, and which was interesting. I mean, I like seeing films like this where it's a filmmaker that I know and I like a lot of what they do, kind of like Peter Jackson doing freaking Meet the Feebles and Dead Alive or Brain Dead.
Mm-hmm. Whatever name you want to go with.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. It's always like, oh, okay. So it's cool to see their early work versus, well, it's not like Star Wars was really much later than this film, but later, it's later enough. But I love seeing really where people start getting their foot in the door with stuff. But and that was certainly this.
Yeah, well, because this one's technically George's second movie. He had THX right beforehand that bankrupted Zoetrope because people couldn't figure it out. Because that movie's like hardcore sci-fi. Like, it's not just like light sci-fi or anything like that. Like, it's because I think people, well, I don't know, back in the day, I think that just kind of came out and people were like, what the hell is this? Like, you know what I mean? I thought it was going to be like 2001 Space Odyssey, and I don't know where this was going.
I saw something about that being his first venture in the film industry, that THX. And then in that documentary you sent me, I was watching that earlier, and I saw that the troubles he had with that. And then I find it kind of funny that there's later on, of course, there's that big THX. I don't know if it's a sound company or whatever, but every time you'd watch a movie or something, there's a big THX thing.
I literally have two like from the 80s like THX George Lucas speakers on my TV that are pretty badass.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're like that kind that were made like if you wanted to have the super setup for Laserdisc, that's what these speakers were designed for.
I gotta say this movie, of course, what's going on here is we talked about it before, just a day or so ago, but this is like the beginning of the coming of age kind of shot. It takes place in a one day teenager type of flick, like it's the end of high school, it's the beginning of summer vacation, it's the beginning of a rest of life, the end of senior year type of thing. And as we were watching it, I kept thinking about, the first thing I thought about was Dazed and Confused. And then the second thing I
always think Dazed and Confused is kind of like really like the 70s version of American Graffiti by far.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, like there's been kind of a movie for each decade on this kind of thing. And some of them, of course, they take place in more than just a day, but it made me think of that. It made me think of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It made me think of Wet Hot American Summer, which I think is like the early millennium when that came out. And that's a little different of a film. Not an amazing film in my mind, but and then the Detroit Rock City a little bit, and Superbad, of course. And since Superbad, I don't recall because it's not exactly my favorite film genre to begin with. Although I must say, I think it's a winning formula for a film because you got just the film takes place in this amount of time, and I think that gives you such a great opportunity to make a lot of things happen. Instead of having something that takes place in weeks, months, a year, whatever, because then you got to figure out how did we get here and there and whatever. So I think it's a winning formula. But I don't know. I guess I hated high school so much. I've never cared to see how it went for other people. But
you didn't have that like story you wanted to tell. Like I like because
exactly.
I was listening to the commentary on this, and I like George is all like, it's like, yeah, I kind of wasted like 4 years of my life just like hanging out in Modesto and so on. But I guess I can look at it like research now for American Graffiti. But I think that's the thing is from, you know, being from this area, because technically Modesto, where this movie takes place, not where it's technically shot.
Which of course is great because it's not very far from where you and I grew up, an hour and a half.
Well, yeah, that's literally Modesto is the major city. Ironically, the movie makes it out like it's a small town, and I had to look it up. Like, what was the population in '62 in Modesto?
Yeah.
Well, it was 37,000, so it was still a pretty good-sized city back then, too. You know, I was kind of always wondering if Modesto, because nowadays it's like I think it's almost like 200,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was really wondering if Modesto was kind of like teeny tiny, like way back in the day. But 37 still.
It's not. It's like not a little bit of people, but I get it. It's not like giant city by any means.
Yeah, for the '60s, that seems like a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
like
know, nowadays, I know
there's about 20,000 people in the area that I live in, which I feel like it's that same thing. Like, it doesn't feel like a big place. When you think about there being 20,000 people, you think that's a lot of people. But I feel like where I live right now probably would have felt like the same as like Modesto. It's that kind of cross between rural and suburban. You know, there's farmland, there's that little kind of city. But yeah, no, that's I think it's pretty cool. I mean, Modesto sucks. You know, I don't know anybody out there who's going to be like, oh, I sure love Modesto. Let's go down and have ourselves a great time. I mean, nothing, man. There's really not much of a, I'm like, sorry to say it to anybody that really loves Modesto. But I mean, as many times as you or I definitely would, you know, I wasn't doing anything and I didn't have a girlfriend and my friends were whatever, either in the military or working that day or whatever. So I'm like, I guess I'll go down to the mall or something, you know, like, for whatever reason, I couldn't do anything in Arnold. I couldn't go fishing or hiking or whatever. I just didn't choose to. It's like, go down the mall, look at some crap, not buying anything, and then I'll drive home. And
well, I'm going to say this. That's sort of what Modesto was back in the day, I think, for us, is that it was the place that had all the stores. It had the mall. It had the cool bookstores and comic book places and video game shops and music stores and all that kind of stuff that sadly nowadays doesn't exist there
Most
anymore.
of them are going away.
Yeah, they're all practically gone. All the good bookstores are gone. All the good, you know, record stores, all that stuff.
Even FYE, you know, like it's not
finally
like
closed.
A mom and pop record store, but it was like, what options did we have? And I mean, that was there for, I don't know, I think like 20 something years. And that last time I came out in December and saw you guys and whatnot, I just so happened to be there on the right week. And I went in there, you know, I'm like, I'll go check out and see if there's anywhere, you know, I remember I go down to FYE. And as soon as I pull up, I see signs on the windows, like everything must go, you know, like half off this and that. And I walk in, I'm like, you guys closing? They're like, yeah. And in like 5 days, I'm like, dang. And, but I can only imagine, you know, like, because of our experiences with this place, it's not like it was the worst place in the world, you know, like we're still in the USA, you know?
No, yeah, exactly. I actually legitimately lived in Modesto for like all of like 8 months one time because I was just like, I'm going to go down there and take a couple classes at the junior college that George Lucas went to at one point. And you know, and so, you know, it was kind of fun for a moment, but we used to always make the joke because we had this really great apartment place. We're like, if you could just take that apartment building and just place it anywhere else, it would be amazing, you know, but you're in Modesto, so it's kind of, it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, it is.
The only upside I will say to Modesto, though, is as far as California goes, you kind of take this for granted, but it's very centrally located. You can like shoot to Sacramento in like 45 minutes. You can shoot to San Francisco in like an hour. You know, you can shoot to Fresno in like maybe a little bit less than an hour. So you can go all over the place. It is kind of like
I think 6.5 hours from there.
Probably even less than that because it's like 5.5 if all goes well from like where I'm at. So I'm thinking from Modesto it's probably like 4.5, 5, as long as you don't hit traffic or anything. I'm just trying to get into LA.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is a centrally located place, and it's really not that far from the ocean.
No,
you said, but no.
Yeah,
but
it used to be kind of the cheapest place of like, in a sense, you could be in a city and pay the least amount. I mean, nowadays, who knows what it is? But like back in the day when I was there, it was like $600 for like a nice studio apartment.
Man, I bet it's even more now. Holy crap!
I bet so. I bet it's 1,200. You know.
Man, but yeah, no, it is cool though. Watching this film, I can't say there's many places I recognized. I mean, even if I was,
well, it was shot in Petaluma.
Oh, that's true. I did remember seeing that
because George said in literally like 10 years, he's like, it's not the same. It doesn't look the same. I'm going to shoot Petaluma. Well, they were going to shoot in San Rafael, and because apparently that still kind of had the 50s, early 60s look and so on like that going for it. They shot there for one day, and they're like, no, get the hell out of here. We don't want you here. Like, so they literally had to go find another city, like, we'll go Petaluma instead.
That's so funny. George Lucas seemed to have handful of issues making this film, man. I mean,
quite a bit.
From not much of a budget, it seemed like. I remember one of the things that one of the actors was talking about to him was like, man, can we at least like get a seat? Like get some chairs? And he's like, oh, it's not in the budget. So it's like,
yeah, I love how Francis Ford Coppola's like, nope, you're not getting chairs.
That's funny. Yeah, I think one of the funnier things was how all the actors even got the job. Very interesting. Harrison Ford, of course, a longtime George movie star, was a freaking carpenter and apparently had a really successful business, and kind of like a coin toss on whether or not he was going to take the job. And then there's the thing about him like not wanting to cut his hair or something, so he requested that he wear a cowboy hat.
Because it's the 70s. The 70s, you need your hair. You know what I mean? And the idea of like trying to have this, like, in a sense, 50s, even though it's 62 is when it takes place, but that early 60s is very 50s like anyways still. Yeah. So none of those guys want to have that look, that was last decade.
Yeah. No, that's pretty great. Of course, too, the guy that plays Toad, that was pretty hilarious. Getting that stupid Vespa that he drives and not knowing how to ride it, and he had like an hour of riding time before he gets on set. And of course, that was one of my favorite parts. Favorite characters in this movie was Toad. So, I guess to set the scene here, it's everybody's graduated, like I think a week prior to the beginning of the movie, and or something like that, and or a few days prior, or something like that, and this Toad kid, he's like the dork in the group of friends, and he rolls up to this diner that everybody comes back to. You see as you watch the film, there's that fifth. It's the Mel's Diner that you and I and probably most other people in California have been to once or twice, over the time.
Yeah, it's become a chain as over time. So this one here is the Mel's Diner in San Francisco, so. The Van Ness one. So that is the original one, apparently. I kind of looked this up. You know what used to confuse me? Now, this is a very California local thing here, but Mel's Diner in Jackson?
That's not the same, I don't think.
No, that's not the same. But when I was a kid, for the longest time, I literally thought that was the Mel's Diner. I thought that was the original Mel's Diner.
I did too. So back then, like when you and I were teens, I think you're a few years older than me, but I remember when I was like 12 or 13, my stepdad was driving my mom and I to Jackson, I think to Walmart over there or something, or maybe we were going to Placerville. I don't really remember. But I remember when what's there now, Mel and Faye's Diner, it's a pretty big building, and it used to be just on the side of the highway, the side of 49, I think, and it was just this little place, like a little like boxy looking building that looked like it had two rooms. One was probably storage, the other was a kitchen, and it was called Mel and Faye's, and it said Home of the Moo Burger. And there was a funny looking cow that they painted on the side of it. And I thought the same thing. I thought it was Mel's for years. And in fact, I'm pretty sure my stepdad told me that it was Mel's. And later on, I'm like, that's not Mel's. That's but
well, apparently those two places, they only started a couple of years apart from each other. So really? The Mel's in San Francisco, that's the one that's the chain now, the one that's in the movie. Yeah. And then that Mel's in Jackson, we're only like a couple of years off. They both started in the late 40s or whatnot. Okay. And so that Mel's there, because I went there a handful of times as a kid to the one that was on the side, just a little teeny place. And it's weird. Once they demolished it, it almost looks like, how was there even a business there? How could you even park there? It's so tiny, but used to be able to park in there.
Bathrooms there now, like just two, like strangely enough, there's two public restrooms there. It's just, I'm like, couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah, that's what they put there. But I remember
it's so weird. It's like you're just walking down the street, like, I do have to take a shit. I will just. go in this
Yeah,
random
pull
building.
over here.
Pretty odd.
But I remember going there as a kid a bunch of times, and it was very old school and whatnot. You get like a milkshake. They had a cool arcade. It only had like a couple cabinets, but that's always what I remember. That's the thing that sticks in my mind. It's like, oh, the arcade was kind of neat there, And then once they got rid of that version and they put the new one on top of the hill, I remember we went there once, but it felt like all the magic was gone. Like, I hate to sort of say
like going anywhere else.
That happens to a lot of restaurants, and I get it. Probably as an owner, you're probably like, oh, now we got a brand new building, all the plumbing works, everything in here is, brand new. But the downfall is I've never seen a restaurant that buys a new building and it totally is like, man, it's great. It always feels like it goes kind of downhill. Business might be fine, but
that's what I feel about Snowshoe and Arnold, except for it neither has any new stuff and it still sucks.
See, I remember Snowshoe when it used to be. We was talking about random business, like random California businesses.
Yeah, I know, right?
But I remember because as a kid, like I had a soccer team, in fourth grade or something like that, and we were sponsored by Snowshoe Brewery, which is
it used to be the
fourth
Standard
graders.
Pour.
Yeah. Well, no, it's Standard Pour now, but it used to be Snowshoe.
That's what
Brewery.
I meant. It turned into the Standard Pour, yeah.
And I remember just as kids, because I could you imagine that nowadays, like a little league team or a soccer team being sponsored by a beer company?
Yeah.
But as a kid, you're like, oh, dude, we're the beer team. This is awesome. And of course, we probably lost 90% of our games. It'd be expected of the beer team. I'll expect the beer team to be the winners.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But yeah, the Mel's, if anybody's never been there, it is good. I would recommend going there anytime. It's a pretty cool restaurant. It's all, as you'd expect, the 50s, 60s theme, all the retro, the vintage stuff, the classic cars, the flow type of waitress and whatnot. It's cool. But
the chain still holds up pretty well too. I will say it's one of those chains that you go to and it doesn't feel like it's kind of run down and holding out. Like the one, because I'll go to the one in Sacramento every once in a while. There's the one in Hollywood. Of course, I've been to that one in Van Ness back in the day. That one's pretty cool. And then there's another one in. That's like I think kind of a little bit more on the outskirts, not outskirts, but farther out in San Francisco there too. Mm-hmm. But no, they still kind of hold up. But I also have to say this, though. It's like, you probably remember when we were kids how big the 50s stuff kind of was. Like, you would find the
absolutely.
50s diners. You would see John Wayne and Marilyn Monroe and all kinds of, like, stuff all along the way. I've kind of thought about this in, like, the last, 10 to 15 years, is that, like, you barely see any of that stuff anymore. It is not
There was
not
another
thing.
place that my family used to go to now and then. I only remember, 2 of them ever, but it was called Chevy's. And...
pretty positive. Kind of partially that was Chubby's that was in Sonora.
Chubby's. Okay, never mind.
And that was a 50s style diner.
Maybe I'm thinking Chubby's.
Because Chubby's was the Mexican restaurant that was like the chain. It was in Modesto as well too. So I can remember it.
I remember there being a Mexican restaurant called Chevy's. But
because I used to think of Chevy Chase when I was a kid. I don't know why, but that's what I pictured of that restaurant.
Maybe it was Chubby's then, because I don't know why. I mean, Chubby's. I guess it's easy enough to get them mixed up. But I swear there was multiple of these 50 style diners that were started with the CH. Chevy's, I don't know. But yeah,
I think it was Chevy's, because wasn't there one in Angels Camp or something like that as well too? And I think one in Modesto.
I think so. I really think so, but I could be wrong. The one in Angels Camp was actually called Rod's Grill. That was a privately owned place.
I know that was a different one that I'm actually thinking of. I know which one you're talking about there too, though, because that one was around for a long time and it just switched like a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know of another one though, but but anyhow, so in this theme, there's 2 central things that it all comes back to. Everything keeps coming back to the diner, and everything keeps going back and forth with this radio disc jockey who is this renowned DJ and kind of almost like the voice of not really the voice of the nation. I was going to say, but he's just this almost like ethereal person, that like an enigma of a dude, almost like he doesn't exist, but he's there everywhere because he's on the radio and of course, you got all these classic cars. People are constantly driving, listening to the radio, and this guy's just there all the time.
Yeah, Wolfman Jack.
That's right.
You know, and the interesting thing too is I think about this is I think this is why George kind of made this movie like literally at this time period, because this is that era where like everybody listens to the same thing. It's not like, you know, nowadays like nothing's in common with anything. Like you could meet 15 people and you have nothing in common with them. Even if they like music, they like movies, they like video games, they like all this stuff. It's amazing how like you can have nothing in common with them because things are so spaced out and broad and everything. But I think about this like in 62, like generally everybody's listening to the same music. I mean, you might get that, there might be that one kid be like, oh, I'm just really hardcore into jazz or something like that, you know? or the guy who's like really into honky tonk or something like that, you know. But for the most part, like if you listen to rock and roll, you're gonna listen to the same bands. You know what I mean? You might have your preferences of who you like and so on, but the thing is like it's there. So even like these cars, it's like everybody's listening to the same radio station. It's not like in the 90s and 2000s that nobody's listening to the same radio station. You know what I mean?
Yeah, except for the character John in the film, who's like, I think he graduated already like a year or so, maybe ahead of the other students that just graduated. It doesn't really say exactly how much older he is, but they joke about him in the beginning of the film, saying like one of the guys tells the other graduates like, "Come on, you got to go to college. You know, like you don't want to be like John. You know, over here he just has this hot rod that apparently is his life, and they don't really see much else about him. I guess the idea is the fact that he's not going to go anywhere in life."
Yeah, and, he's got the coolest car in Modesto, but is that enough? Practically the coolest car in the valley. So you know what? This is the whole Central California region.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But that's not good enough for you know what I mean? Like, what do you want from me?
yeah, and he's totally got that whole persona too. You know, he's got his slick back hair. He has the cigarettes in his sleeve. Got the cool hot rod with the engine exposed, and he's just there. He's kind of playing jokes on everybody. He pantses the guy, and as he's trying to talk to one of the females at the diner. Her name's Buddha. Toad, the dork, asks Buddha if she wants to go to the dance with him or whatever. And she's like, oh, yeah, right. Why would I do that? You know, and then John comes around and pantses him, and he's like, oh, did she do that to you? But it's pretty hilarious.
And these guys are all friends, you know?
Yeah, they're all friends. And it's funny, man. You know, like, shit changes over the years. You know, like styles change, clothing, music taste, as we just talked about. Everything changes, the way that people talk, colloquial language and everything. But yet there's still the same group of friends in like all these kinds of movies, right? And it's the same kind of thing. You got John, who's the guy we just talked about. Toad's the dork. Then you've got Curtis, I think, is the brother.
Kurt, yeah, you got him
Curtis
in there.
Is the brother to the girl Lori, I think her name is. And then the guy who's going away for sure, and until the end where he decides not to. Steve, Ron Howard.
Ron Howard. You know, Curtis. You know, you got Richard Dreyfuss. So you got all these like young buck guys who are just going to be humongous stars pretty darn soon. But they're all buddies, and it's kind of weird because they almost feel like they're all slightly different ages, like because it makes it feel that John is like maybe he's like a year out or so. He's almost like the Matthew McConaughey character in Dazed and Confused, who still comes back and hangs out with the high school guys. Yeah, you know, he works at like the auto shop and everything.
Except for funny enough, McConaughey in that movie almost seems like he's like 40. Compared to the other students. I think it's a dorky haircut that's really, and his mustache is kind of what's doing that for him. But
yeah, he's just he's just old enough to go buy a beer. That's just really what it is. But he does seem so much older than everybody.
He does.
But so you got this group of guys, and even it's funny because Ron Howard, he's supposed to be kind of like the cool guy, preppy guy. It's funny, it's just Ron Howard. So, sometimes he has some of the way he talks in this movie just seems like, boy, Ron Howard's like kind of ballsy. Like when him and Lori are first sitting in the car right off at the beginning and whatnot like that, and they're like talking and just hanging out there. And he's like, you know what, I'm going off to college, and you know what? I think we should just see other people. You know what? I want to expand my horizons. This Modesto-ness is, give me one of those fries real quick. But I'm Ron Howard here, and as Opie, I got to expand here. I'm leaving Mayberry. I just love how he just kind of breaks this. It just seems funny for Ron Howard to be that guy. If the John guy said that, you'd be like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? He's sense, the cool guy. He's got the cool car. You know, he doesn't need any hanger-oners.
I mean, for God's sakes, he's a ginger. You know, he doesn't have the right. But
Ron just talks just like, you know, I want to experience stuff. You know,
and she's just like, you know, and it's funny. Him and her, they go back and forth all throughout the film. What's funny too about this movie is it almost seems like people are just playing musical cars, going back and forth between getting in other people's cars and this and that. But I guess I don't know how much George wanted to put his emphasis on that, but I mean, he did a great job on showing off a bunch of nice cars. And we were talking to it's so funny, man. You see all these classic cars, and back then it's like I don't think anybody really cared. Nowadays, you know, you don't see any of those anywhere, and except for on the
car show,
the car shows, and that Barrett Jackson auction. And it's funny too, like, you know, in that year, the movie takes place in 1962. You think all those cars and 30 years from then were going to be worth just like astronomical amounts, and meanwhile, I take my 2026 Maverick, and in 30 years, it'll probably be worth like $5,000. You know, like, funny how that's going to work out.
Well, the funny thing too is those cars, if you think about it, because once again, this movie's made, it came out in 73, but that means it was probably made in about 72 is when they were shooting all this stuff. So it's only 10 years from when the movie takes place in 62. And you think about, like, those cars are all like late 50s cars, maybe a couple early 60s and so on like that.
Yeah.
And at that time period, they were kind of looked upon as like, oh, you know, these are these kind of classic cars and so on like that. They're only 10 years old. Could you imagine that? That'd be like having a car nowadays from 2015 and being like,
exactly,
you know what, this is a pretty rad car, you know, mobile.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what's hilarious about it. But yeah, the what's his name? So Ron Howard's character Steve, he's like just so hot on going to college and hooking up with chicks and whatnot, and you know,
trying LSDs. Like, I hear about this new stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, Curtis isn't sure he wants to go. The teacher that is supervising at the that was hilarious. So they go to this school dance for a minute.
Let's all go like to the hop.
Yeah, the hop. It's like, it's not exactly a going away thing because school's about to get back in session, and yeah, because it's kind of like it's like a weird. It's like almost like they got some of these school events that are sort of happening during the summertime. Yeah,
I don't know. This is like some weird 60s thing that I feel like I can't imagine it happen like, you know, later in life, but like
that's like propaganda from adults to make you think school's awesome or something, you know, like
that's what it comes across as. And it's the weird thing too, because it feels like it's, you know, at first you think this movie's like, oh, it's taking place like on the last day of school, like Dazed and Confused.
That's exactly what I thought.
You know, but then you kind of realize as you go through it, it's like, it's not exactly. It's like it's literally a couple months later, but it's almost like they're getting ready to start their next semester. Yeah,
and but yeah, they well, like I said, they all meet up at this diner, and then they talk about like, oh, I'm going here, I'm going there, you know, and they all kind of split up, and John is cruising down the streets of not Modesto, and he's kind of razzing these girls in another car, saying like, hey, who wants to go for a ride, you know? And they're kind of like, yeah, right, haha. And then one of them says, hey, my sister will get in the car with you. He's like, all right. And then she turned out to be this 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, the mama and the papa's daughter.
Yeah, which was crazy. I saw them, like, of course. And it's like, man, like, it just kind of goes to show you that, like, you know, it takes knowing people to get into this kind of thing. But funny enough, there was a few other actors and actresses, I think, in this movie that really weren't big time at all, which is cool. But I don't think that happens very much anymore, unless you're just the world's best actor and actress. But
well, really, other than Ron Howard, that's the only one that was really major. You know,
even Harrison Ford wasn't really a major actor at the time, I don't think.
Well, that's kind of the strange thing about Harrison Ford, because in this movie he's just kind of this light role, and he's like older than everybody else. I think he's like 30 by this point, you know.
Yeah.
And his character plays it fine. They're not selling him like he's a high schooler or anything like that. He's just the guy who's cruising in here to
Bob Falfa.
Yeah, exactly. But the funny thing is about Harrison Ford is like he tried acting and then like in his 20s and he's like, it's just I'm not working. I'm gonna do the carpenter thing. Yeah, he's like, I'm out of it. I'm gonna get a real job. I got 2 kids and everything like that. I gotta take care of this. And the fact that he does this movie right here skyrockets him into like probably one of the top 10 biggest movie actors of all time.
Yeah, little would he know that he'd be playing the president, kicking terrorists off a plane.
Yeah, get off my plane. Best president ever.
That's funny.
You know, but yeah, so you have that there, and then yeah, it's funny. You got the mamas and the papas girl who's like the 12-year-old. So now he's stuck with this 12-year-old girl, you know, which back in the, it's like feels like in the 60s it was more just like, oh man, this is kind of goofy, this is weird and so on like that. Nowadays, be like, get the hell out of the car.
Oh yeah,
do not be catching me. I will not be caught dead.
Oh, I'd pull over and just kick her out and be like, sorry.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, you're a walking liability, a lawsuit. Like, get out of here.
Honestly, I'd probably drive to the police station. I'd probably drive to the police station and say, like, you know, like, she is not, I don't know who she is, please, because I wouldn't feel like good about just like kicking her out in public. Because, you know, there's sickos out there. But I definitely wouldn't want her in my
Modesto.
car. I'd be straight to the police station. Yeah, exactly. Modesto. And then, but yeah, back then, I'm sure like nobody really gave a shit. But yeah, you got that going on. Curtis is with his sister and her friend, and he just sees this beautiful blonde woman in this T-Bird. And really cool car, and he's just like, she mouths to him, "I love you," and he's trying to find her like the whole freaking night, you know, like going after her. And I think he catches her at another point, but then she goes away again, and then finally, you know, like he gets the disc jockey to send a little note out for her and whatnot, and blah blah blah. Doesn't really go anywhere, but he's chasing that woman the whole night. Steve, you know, having the idea that he's going to be going off to college and fooling around and doing drugs and all that kind of stuff. He tells Toad, "Here's my car, buddy. You look after it while I'm gone." And he's just enthralled, and he takes that thing for a spin. And then Steve is like, somehow has the idea, you know, that after telling his girlfriend, "Yeah, we should see other people, you know, while I'm away," still thinks that she's going to be okay with that, which is hilarious. And,
I know. He like nonchalantly just thinks like, this is gonna be cool. You know, like I thought she was hip. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
he's like, I'm really early into this free love thing. I'm like,
hilarious. And yeah, but she could care less. She's like, "No, forget you, man." Well, then, yeah, her and him and Kurt, and they go to the little dance and whatever. That's where people start separating again. And
well, because even the dance, like, because I think they're almost like almost considered the king and queen, like, you know, like,
yeah, that's right. Like, they consider
like the prom queens in a sense.
Right in the middle of their argument, you know. She's like, "You gotta be kidding me," and he's giving her the whole spiel, you know, like you usually see, where he's like, "Oh, don't be a prude," you know, like, and whatnot. She's not having it, and then of course there's this teacher that's supervising the dance. Of course, all these young girls want to dance with him and stuff, and he's like, "No, I know you're all looking really sexy, but you know, I gotta go." And I'm like, damn.
60s.
Yeah. And but yeah, and yeah, that Kurt guy, he's just walking around looking for that girl. And
well, even that like teacher guy has a conversation with Kurt, because there's a lot of these interesting moments that happen with Kurt, because it's almost this thing like he's going off to college, but there's so many of these elements that are trying to hold him back in Modesto, in a sense, you know, because even that teacher, you know, they go outside, he has like a cigarette with the teacher or whatnot, you know.
He's like, "Dude, you got to go experience life." Like,
yeah, he's like, I went out to college, I went there for one semester, and then I was back in Modesto, and look at me now.
Which is hilarious. He talks about how he was in college for a semester, but somehow he's a teacher.
60s.
Maybe he finished up school in Modesto. Who knows?
Yeah, but, you know, because they always talk about they're going to the JC, which is MJC there.
Yeah. And I love, probably my favorite thing about this movie, man. It's just the vintage, everything, the vintage vibe and whatnot, the cool cars, the constant rock and roll music, which I think today, you know, people that are a lot older than us, they're gonna hear that and know that's rock and roll. That's what rock and roll was. That music back then. People today that are younger than us, even people that are our age or maybe a couple years older, they'll hear that and go, "That's not rock and roll." But that's the origins there, man. I mean, of course, you got the older blues stuff too, like Chuck Berry and whatnot. But this was, like you said, nobody was really listening to anything else. And I love too how, but it's cool to just constantly hear these rock and roll songs throughout this movie with these cool cars and everything vintage going on. And I think it was Coppola, I think, who was saying in that interview that there was no other film that had like a constant playlist of music throughout the film like that.
Because that wasn't really a common thing to have, literally you just get old albums and just play them as your soundtrack, You take that for granted nowadays because so many movies have done it forever, in a sense. The only thing I can think of is that there's those beach party movies like in the 50s where, I guess they have like the one band that's kind of playing the whole time and so on like that. But it's not wall to wall, because this one's just like the whole thing is that the music is as long as there's cars and everything like that, or they're in like the burger joint or anything, there's literally tunes playing. And so there's like 40 or so plus songs going on this whole movie. So you get this giant soundtrack of tunes. And it is the one that's like, these are those old school rock and roll ones. And I can literally remember that, like, because this is the weird thing when you look at classic rock radio stations, especially even now. I remember, like, in the early 90s, classic rock stations still played. They would still have a few, like, a Buddy Holly song, an Elvis song, a Fats Domino song. And then that kind of fade away to where, like, the oldest
Metallica,
thing.
The Unforgiven.
Yeah, and nowadays it's like you almost probably won't even hear the Beatles, or you probably, if you're lucky, Jimi Hendrix might be the oldest thing you hear, and that'd be like.
And Led Zeppelin and stuff.
Yeah, but like the 60s stuff's kind of gone now too. You don't really hear that.
It blows my mind. Like, a genre is a genre. The genre shouldn't change. If you want to have a radio station and you want to be like keeping your music within the last like 30 years or so, that's fine. But don't say it's, like Metallica's not classic rock. You know what I mean? That's why I've always thought it was kind of funny that I think it's 104.1 The Hawk.
Modesto's rock station.
What the hell is this? That's kind of funny. So over my shoulder here, I don't know what it looks like to you, but that's
Primus?
Almost like a caricature. Yeah, it's on my screen I can't really make it out, but yeah, it's a little Primus poster I got from a show in Modesto in 2015, and that was there in Modesto, like downtown Modesto, some venue, and I think that is the only show I've ever seen in Modesto. I was like, I love Primus, and when I saw that they were playing, I'm like, oh heck yeah, dude! Like, it's only an hour and a half away from me. Like, I don't have to go over the Grapevine. I don't have to go over a mountain pass or whatever. I'm just right down to Modesto. And it was a great show, if you like Primus. But on that, they made that poster specifically for that show, so it's got like Modesto, whatever the date was, it's on there and stuff. But that's a little piece of Modesto I'll have from you, for the rest of my life. But I don't know why I brought that up, but yeah, there it is.
Modesto.
Modesto. But it is cool though, the way that they had the music going in this. Oh, now I remember the reason why I bring that up. I guess the members of Primus kind of were, like a lot of people in the music industry, come out of the Bay Area, Central Valley of California. And when I heard that dude, Wolfman Jack. When I heard his voice at first, I thought, dude, that sounds exactly like, I don't know if you've ever seen the music video Tommy the Cat, or the song Tommy the Cat by Primus.
I know the song. Yeah.
It's pretty hilarious. The music video is great. It's so weird. And then there's like some like Looney Tunes style parts in the video and blah, blah, blah. It's a kind of old timey looking cartoon. Not even Looney Tunes, like older than that, like cartoons from like the 50s where everybody's like going like this.
The
like
Fleischer ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's like a disc jockey in there. I'm pretty sure it's Les Claypool doing it, because he can do so much silly voices. But the dude sounds his voice in that music video sounds exactly like Wolfman Jack, and it's like he's talking over a radio, like it's so funny. And that was the first thing I thought of was Tommy the Cat music video when I heard Wolfman Jack, and then I thought, oh, there's my Modesto thing right there, and they're kind of from that area. I read something about them being in Modesto a bunch, but that was kind of funny. But yeah, they let's see what else happened. Yeah, Curtis. I think it's just Kurt, to be honest.
Kurt, yeah. I guess you probably short for Curtis.
I think I keep thinking about my buddy Curtis, who runs the bar in Oakland and the bar in Avery. But yeah, so Kurt, he kind of gets kicked out because there's this guy that pulls up. I don't even think he's a student anymore. He pulls up in a car. It sounds like he's stoned, but pulls up next to Kurt and his sister and her friend, and she's like, talk to him. I just want to know him. He's so cool. And so he's like, hey, she's in love with you and she loves your biceps and all this. And and yeah, I don't even think he cares. And then she kicks him out of the car and he goes around wandering around by himself and gets picked up by these greasers called the Pharaohs.
Yeah, this hooligan gang.
I think it's so funny. Like, these guys aren't really bikers or nothing, so it seems. But I just think about how, I guess this used to be a thing. Guys walking around together and they're like have the name of their, like their little group on the back of their jackets and stuff, but like they're not bikers, they're not a sports team or nothing. Just a group of jerks.
Yeah, and I think they're supposed to be an auto club, but well, they got that one red car that they drive around in and so on like that. But yeah, they're those proto gang guys that feel like they're clearly way older than everybody else here, but they're still bothering everybody in Modesto.
Yeah. And they pick him up for sitting on somebody's car that they say pays them to not have people sit on the car or whatever. And they kind of get him to persuade him, I guess, in a semi-threatening fashion to kind of hang out with them throughout the night. And they get him they go into this little arcade or whatever and try to jack money out of it and kind of weasel the way out of that. And when they almost get in trouble for it. Then they go and chain up. They have Kurt, he does it, actually, chains up the rear axle.
Initiation act for the gang member.
That's right. They chains up an axle in the back of this police car that they go screaming past it after he chains it up in their car. And naturally, the cop car goes to go after him. And then, of course, it rips the back axle out. And I kept thinking, like, that's crazy. I'm like, I wonder if that would really do that or if it would just keep the car from going forward. I don't know, but that's a pretty
apparently
cool fact.
George Lucas had a friend that did that back in Modesto back in the day. I don't think it because I know George said in the movie, of course, they made it more theatrical looking, but it did stop the police car.
Yeah,
they weren't able to go any farther.
And I say there was a cool scene where John and the girl, I already forgot her name, the 12-year-old.
Oh, no. John, Laura's the...
Debbie.
What was her... No, her name... No, Debbie's the...
Carol. Carol.
Yeah. No. It's not Carol. It's Mackenzie, I want to say.
That's the actress's name.
Oh, is it? Okay, never mind. Yeah, take that back. So, yeah,
Mackenzie
Carol.
Phillips played Carol. But she...
Right. Okay,
I was just looking at the other names here. Anyway, she for whatever reason she's carrying around a can of shaving cream, and like, what the hell? And she's kind of at first she's such a, I don't even know the right word to say, just like insufferable. She's such an insufferable character at first, only because she's so annoying. But then you start to feel for her. I mean, like, she kind of looks a little older than 12. She's definitely tall, and she just wants to go hang out. And she says her parents don't like her sister don't like her, nobody likes her. John's like, get the hell out of my car, so he doesn't like her, and blah, blah, blah. And then she's telling him, like, I ain't getting out of the car. I'll say that you raped me. I'll say that this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you gotta be kidding me. And
I like how she even says at one point that she's gonna rape him.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's very threatening for like a 12-year-old as well.
Yeah. It is pretty silly, but they stop and pull over next to this group of girls in this car that I guess are kind of being silly. I don't even know what else to say. Like they were just talking a bunch of shit, I guess.
They're like, hey, you won a prize for having the coolest car in the Central Valley.
Yeah, that's right. And I think they throw a water balloon at her face. And
yeah, it's like,
I think it was aimed at him, but he ducked, and then it hit her square in the face. So they pull up and stop at the next red light. They get out, and he gets all the air out of her tires, which I was kind of impressive, actually. I don't know how.
Well, I'm surprised that they didn't just take off once they realized that they were being attacked.
Yeah, exactly. And then she shaving creams the whole car, and oh man, that's one thing I think about in this movie a lot is like all these poor cars just getting like tainted. But let's see, Toad, he's probably my favorite character in the whole movie. He's
so goofy. He's just fun.
He's hopeless, goofy. He's like the McLovin of the 60s.
Yeah, literally.
And so he picks up this girl, Debbie, that's like, you would think like is way out of this kid's league, but he's so different from everybody else that she's like, okay, sure, I'll give this guy a try. He says she looks like some actress, and she's like, oh, really? She hops in the car. That's not his. He tells her it's his. He makes up all kinds of stories about himself. Says
he's a hunter. He's got a Jeep.
Yeah, exactly. And then they go to a drive-in. Some other dude comes by that knows Debbie, that apparently he's probably boned her here or there or whatever. I don't know.
Because Debbie seems kind of slutty.
A little loose.
She kind of hangs out with everybody.
Yeah, a little bit. But hey, that's fine. I mean,
that's okay.
Take what you can get, I guess. And Toad's not ever had anything, so
no, he's a toad.
That's right, and he's just happy to be where he is. And meanwhile, the guy can hardly drive a Vespa. And but so they're at the drive-in, and then she tells him like, you want to get some booze, get some hard stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, sure. And go to a gas station. Of where he tries several times unsuccessfully to get some booze. He asks this one guy. It's hilarious, man. This first guy shows up, gets out of his car, and Toad's like, hey, sir, about to ask, like, would you mind getting me some? But of course, the guy's like so intimidating, just in his nature, that he's like, do you have the time? And he's like, yeah, it's 5 past midnight or whatever it was. He's like, okay, great. And meanwhile, he's just standing there like, hoping somebody walks by, and of course, like, he's right next to the door, and you would think like, it'd be a little more covert than that, because the clerk is like
right there,
just see you. And
who's this young boy that keeps talking to all the older men outside? He's either trying to buy alcohol or get love.
Exactly. Kind of made me think of the episode of South Park with Cartman where he signs up for that online chat or whatever.
The Nambla or whatever.
I think it was before that. Maybe the
chat roulette one where we're like
he starts talking. He says like, young boy trying to meet older friend or whatever, and then there's like 1,000 messages that pop up, and he says like the one that he responds to, his name's like Hung Daddy or something. That's so ridiculous. That this old guy comes up and he's like, yeah, I lost my wallet, I don't have my ID, and yeah, I need this or that. He's like, oh yeah, sure, okay. Gives him money. The guy goes and buys the stuff and then leaves.
He goes out the other door.
Yep. Then he tries to buy it himself. The guy doesn't buy his excuse about not having his wallet or his ID or whatever. And then finally, this dude shows up. He's like, would you mind buying me? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. Goes in there, steals the booze, chucks it at him as he walks out. And then the shop owner comes out shooting. And,
yeah, because this dude just robbed the place.
That is a California of another age, I'll tell you that. And then what was funny in the interview for this movie, the guy that played Toad was talking about how they did that shot like over and over and over, and it was perfect. Like, it kept just doing it, and he kept catching it like normal. And finally, they did something where the guy chucked it at him and he grabbed it, but was like surprised by something, and it was so weird that's when George Lucas was like, okay, perfect, because it looked like he was naturally shocked or whatever, but.
He wants that kind of stuff. Well, because that's kind of George. George's directing. I know that they people always say he doesn't say a whole lot, just like better and faster is about it.
Yeah.
Because George is kind of like one of those guys who's like, it's weird because like when he was in school, like right before he was making these movies, he was the one that was looked upon out of everybody that this is the number one director. He's going to be the biggest thing, known to mankind. He's the best at everything, the technical stuff. But realistically, he's just a very technical guy, That's why I feel like he kind of invented it, or well, didn't invent it, but like push forward for, the computers and Pixar and all that kind of stuff, because it's like that to him was like, that's the perfect way I could make a movie in the editing room, you know?
Yep. No, you got that right. I mean, I guess George is such a, he's a pioneer of modern filmmaking.
Yeah, he really is. He's probably, I always think about it, he's kind of the biggest just for influencing so many different avenues of modern filmmaking. Like, he's kind of the main guy of it all. I mean, not only do you got just his movies, but just all the other stuff of all this. He's involved in getting the special effects companies going, and all the CG type stuff, and all these things here kind of has the George Lucas hand involved in it. That really the Star Wars money and American Graffiti money is what paid for all that stuff to happen.
Oh, of course. I think he was saying that. I think in the interview, he was saying some of the kind of same thing about Star Wars that was with American Graffiti is like. A real underdog of a film, and ended up just becoming such an icon and legend, in the industry. Which, I mean, what else can you ask for?
Yeah, he made literally like two of the biggest, movies, just like American Graffiti and Star Wars. And it sounds kind of weird, but I was thinking about this today. I do sort of think that, like, way in the future, American Graffiti is going to be one of those movies that really stands out because it will be a very big example of, like, what was it like in, like, the dead center of the 1900s or whatnot, Here's the 50s. Like, it shows a lot. Like, it is a very much of a time capsule type film.
It is. It really is. And I think, though, that, I think that for how cool of a film it is, it really is. Like, as transparent as I can be, I think it's kind of a boring film for the first half, and then it really picks up and things change in the second half, and it just the story gets told is about as much as I can say. You said it really well the other day. It's a hangout film, and it's, I almost want to say exploitation, but not of anything that shouldn't be exploited or whatever. It's an exposition of the past. And it's like you said, time capsule's perfect. But if you can brave that first hour of not a whole lot going on and just wondering like, okay, what's going to happen, then I don't want to say it's like really going to pay off for you, but it's a nice enough story. It's just like we talked about. It's the same type of film that the others we mentioned. Like the stinking Dazed and Confused, super bad. I think that it's good that those films are made because over time, like every generation, I think has this story. And I think that especially for people younger than us, I unfortunately don't think it's going to catch on very well because it's not, how do I put this? It doesn't have that razzmatazz, like it's not like so colorful and this and that, like the movie almost 100% is shot in the dark.
Yeah, it's all nighttime. It's all very dark. It's on pretty much a really high grade 16 millimeter film stock. So it is kind of a grainy, almost a rough looking movie. And I don't mean that like in a bad way, but that's kind of what it is. I do kind of wonder how this movie does start to translate to future generations, because this felt like this was sort of a pass along movie. I remember because my parents really dug this one. That's how I sort of saw it. I know a lot of people of our generation are also connected to this movie just because it's George Lucas.
Yeah.
It's like one of those ones that's like why THX became kind of a big movie in time is because it was George Lucas.
Yeah.
But just like how we were talking about earlier, how that 50s stuff it used to be everywhere for literally this movie almost starts the 50s nostalgic craze.
Yeah.
Because you start to get things like Happy Days comes next. You start to get things like Grease. But then like those chain restaurants, the 50s diners appear. In stores, a lot of times you'll see like the nostalgic sort of section where you get the Marilyn Monroe. You maybe get like the Richie Valens, the John Wayne, all that kind of stuff. I don't see that stuff very much anymore. That stuff is starting to fade away. No, I don't either. And it's kind of a shame because there's a lot of cool stories that come out of that era.
a lot of cool movies and books and shows, and I don't know about games. But like another film I was thinking
the
about.
The 60s is the original day of video games, because you get Space Wars in like 68 or whatever, 67.
That's right.
On a PD-1 computer.
Like I was thinking the other day about this movie you've probably seen. Okay, so it takes place in a few years prior to 1962, but October Sky.
Okay, yeah.
That's another movie that I think is great. If you want those same kind of themes and elements and stuff that are in this movie that you see a lot, because that takes place in 1957. So that's 5 years prior to American Graffiti's era, like when it takes place. But interestingly enough, I thought of another film that we've talked about before while watching American Graffiti. Sure you remember very well, The Loveless with Willem Dafoe. Of course, that movie takes place in the 50s. It doesn't give you a specific year. It just says in the 50s. But I'll say this. I mean, like, I feel like as far as American culture goes and what was really going on physically, as well as, like socially, I don't think there was that many differences between the 50s and the 60s as far as like the cars went, the diners went, attitudes, you know what I mean? Like, who did we have? Like Willem Dafoe and his buddies were not exactly greasers, but they had that same kind of vibe in their get-ups and whatnot, even though some of them kind of look like Nazis.
Well, I think that's kind of, as we talked about, like in The Loveless, I think that theory that I have on it is that it's the most rebel thing you can do to like put it to your parents back in those days is if you have like a little, swastika like on your side. It's like that's the most like punk rock thing that you can do to really piss your parents off, you know? That is the equivalent of getting a mohawk in the 70s or something like that, because it's like your parents just went and fought World War II, so like that's the number one thing they do not want to see on you.
Yep. Yeah, but it's funny is that film weird because that film came out in 1981 and this film's from 73, I think. Yeah. And it's another film that takes place in one day. Same kind of era-ish, except totally different vibes. There's not really much that happens in The Loveless, but to be honest, there's not entirely a whole lot that happens in American Graffiti either, all in all. But it's like a series of misadventures, but it's like kind of on the same level as The Loveless, like going to go buy some booze like 50 miles away or something, at a weird bar that's run by two black guys or whatever. And it was Willem Dafoe there, and then sleeping with this young girl in a hotel. John didn't sleep with no young girl, but she was pretty young riding around in his car. I don't know why. I just thought it was interesting that the two movies are kind of like a lot different, but in some ways they're kind of similar.
Well, it's the interesting thing even about American Graffiti is, and this is why George chose that like 62, is because everything radically changes just in the next couple of years, with a couple of elements. Like one, the music starts to radically change once you have the British invasion. So once the Beatles, once the Stones, once the Who, once even like Jimi Hendrix, because pretty much he did so much of his stuff in England and so on like that. Once all those guys kind of come, it starts to really change everything up. Then you have the hippie movement in general, which coincides with the Vietnam War. So you have all these things here. John F. Kennedy gets assassinated, Martin Luther King gets assassinated, Malcolm X gets assassinated. So you have all this stuff going down too. So there's this radical change, and this is kind of like the last days of innocence is in American Graffiti. It's when
for sure.
Post-war, everybody's having fun, just hanging out. Cars are cool, rock and roll is there. It's a very Americana thing because everything in this is American. The cars is American. For sure. The music is American, like the lifestyle.
The attitudes, the lifestyle, like you said, the lifestyle, got everything. It is a great display of what it was to be an American, I guess, during the 60s.
Yeah.
The late 50s, early 60s. Which is pretty cool. I mean, these days, of course, with the political climates and stuff, I think people would probably, as soon as you tell them that, they throw it away. But
it's kind of funny because I was thinking about that too, because this movie sort of is, especially the way that George does it, is almost very kind of like, you would say it's kind of like, oh, like kind of progressive and all this kind of stuff. I could see people looking at this movie nowadays and making it feel like it feels very conservative. They're trying to say that the 50s was, or the, like the late 60s was, or the early 60s was really good and so on like that. It
really is. Yeah. I mean, like there's literally like messing with cops, breaking the rules, street racing, fooling around with women, talking about doing drugs.
Talking and driving in cars. I think about that too, because there's so many scenes where people just drive up and just talk out the window to each other as they're driving down like McKendree and Modesto.
And that's what's hilarious too. The I almost said Han Solo's character, Harrison Ford's character, Bob Falfa, whatever it is, and he's just this guy like from somewhere around who has this weird looking chick, like almost like some like distant relative of Juliette Lewis or something, on his arm, and he's in his car talking about like, my car is awesome, it's fast, it's this and that, which it is, and he gives it a go against John, and smokes John. At the same time, he comes to a red light, and where John obeys that red light and stops, the other guy, Harrison Ford, doesn't, and he even says like, what's her name? Carol's like, oh wow, that guy's fast. He's like, yeah, he is, but he's stupid. And fair enough. And then of course later on, damn near the end of the movie, it's about the last thing that happens before, the friends say goodbye as Kurt leaves to go to college. Funny enough, Kurt's the one that decides, okay, I'm going to college. Steve's the one that stays behind and sticks around with his girl. And but before that,
he gets pulled back into Modesto.
He does.
He can't escape it.
The revolving doors of the valley, Modesto. The what's her name? Carol. Not Carol. Lori. She goes to meet back up with Steve at the diner, and she sees him talking to the girl Buddha, who wants him to come over, and he's like, oh, okay, and then he decides like, finally, like, no, I don't want to do it. I want to be with my girl. And then he finds out that she went and is riding along with Harrison Ford now.
Whatever happened to that girl that Harrison Ford had at first? I don't know.
Nothing.
But then again, that seems like if that's what it is. It's a revolving, car door of people that jump into your vehicle.
Exactly. Yeah. And that happens a lot in the movie. And so he takes off, and how does he take off? Well, because he gave his car to Toad, right? Well, he's off with Debbie again, and they're just having the night of their life. Toad seems to have the best night out of everybody, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he does get beat up. He does get he's throwing up in the corner, but
it's saved.
He goes through some trials and tribulations, but at the end of the day, he still, he gets.
Yeah, he's making out with Debbie. Making out with Debbie. I don't know. It's kind of unclear. They might have screwed or something, but he's making out with Debbie and gets hammered with her, and then throws it all up, and he's with that. He's got Steve's beautiful car that while him and Debbie, I was telling my wife, I'm like, why the hell would he get out? Like, they go on over to this like kind of isolated area, this like inconspicuous area, and near some field. They're making out and being funny, and then she's like, why don't we go back to my place? And he's like, nah, there's a blanket here, let's go out in the field. And I'm like, what an idiot. I mean, like, if I was with a woman that said, like, let's go back to my house, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Like, this is uncomfortable. And no, I don't want to go lay in the grass.
But of course, Toad is an idiot, though. So
he is an idiot. And of course, there's, before he does that, you see there's two dudes that are outside the car, like looking around. And of course, when they come back, the car's gone. So they go looking for it, and they go looking around for it, and then they.
And of course, Toad leaves the keys in the car.
Yep. So then Steve finds him, and because he's been, like, finally Lori had enough of him, and they're talking a bit. He doesn't exactly. It seems like he doesn't understand.
What is Steve doing just out in the middle of like the farmland area and just happens to run into him?
Well, see, I kind of wondered that myself, because I mean, he just left Lori, because she was like, I've had enough of you. She kicks him out of the car. And then he I don't know, man. It was kind of
I
weird.
think about, like, because literally when Toad is out there with Debbie, it feels like, because I just picture it, we're in Modesto and whatnot, and it's like you drove outside the city and now you're in the farm section.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what it feels like.
I just got kicked out of somebody's car on Pellendale, and then cut to the next scene, and I'm wandering around Farmington.
Yeah, that's almost like what it kind of feels like. He's just kind of gone out that direction. But then all of a sudden, Steve's just there, and he's like literally like walking through like the bushes. It runs into him. It's like, what?
But somehow he still doesn't catch on that the car that he gave to Toad has been stolen.
I like when he just thinks it's like Debbie's. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You literally just gave a car to Toad. What car do you think he was driving? And this is the 50s or the 60s, so it's like it's not like the girls are generally driving around their own vehicles as often.
Yep. Yeah, it's hilarious and just ridiculous. But they're walking around, and he's like, "Oh, I got to take off. I got to go, do whatever." And Debbie's like, "Oh, can we come?" And Toad's like, "No, we're not going to go. We still have to find the car and this and that." And well, they find it, and he starts trying to hotwire it, of course. And then the two guys that stole it come up and start trying to beat the crap out of him. John shows up because he's just finally dropped Debbie off at her parents' house or whatever.
Or Carol.
Carol, not Debbie. Jeez. And I love his little run that he did when he gets out of the car. He sees Toad getting the crap out of him and beat out of him. He just gets out there.
Powers towards them and just starts punching these guys out.
Beating the crap out of these guys that really look a lot bigger than John, to be honest. But I guess it's the heart,
Yeah.
But
John's kind of a skinny guy, but apparently, character-wise or actor-wise, he was. This is his first movie, and he was a boxer.
That's right.
So he was an amateur boxer that just happened to turn actor.
That'd be funny if he actually beat the crap out of those guys, like on accident.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then so he gets the car back, and they go back to the diner, and that's how Steve gets in his car and goes to see what's going on with Lori, who again is riding around with Harrison Ford, and they finally met up. He's finally met up again with John, and they're gonna drive that strip of road that's like southwest of Modesto.
Yeah, I found it today on the GPS I was looking for it. I was like, oh, it makes sense because it literally loops down. It's just this big old straightaway, straight as all can be road.
Mm-hmm. It looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, and I was right too. In the direction they're driving away from, you see those mountains. I told my wife, I'm like, that's probably like Tuolumne, and going over towards the Sonora Pass and whatnot. And it's in that general direction. But
the only downfall is it's shot in Petaluma, that area. So you always got to keep that in mind. Because I was looking at those mountains, I'm like, you know what those mountains are? Those are those mountains you see over there, kind of in the Bay Area section.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at, because it's not, but it's supposed to be the Modesto one, which George Lucas said it was the ironic thing is Paradise whatever road is the one in Modesto. The one that they shot in Petaluma area was called Paradise Road as well.
That's funny. I've only been to Petaluma once. It's a pretty cool little area. Lagunitas Brewing Company's there, and that's like my second favorite brewing company. But it's all right. I mean, it's not like, wow, this place is great. But I mean, if you're driving through, it's a cool place to stop by, try one of their beers on tap or something. But I stopped there on the way to Fort Bragg at one point, and it was cool. But yeah, no. So John finally gets his race again against Harrison Ford, and somehow he screws something up and crashes. I
think the tire pops is what happens.
Maybe.
And then it makes him flip over on the side, and roll that car down the hill. It catches on fire and whatnot.
Yeah. And I thought it seemed like John was actually doing pretty good. He gets off the line quicker than Harrison Ford, and of course he's going to catch up and whatnot. And you really don't get to see a winner because Harrison Ford crashes. And what's his name? John and Kurt. Or not Kurt.
Toad.
I think Kurt does too. John and Kurt.
Kurt's the only one that's not there, because that's the interesting thing about that scene is that all the buddies are there who are going to be stuck in Modesto, and Kurt, because he went and visited Wolfman Jack and had that experience, of seeing the man behind the radio in a way, as he knows that his destiny is not here in Modesto, but he has to go to college and he has to get out.
That's right. Yeah, and he asked him to send a message over the radio for the blonde that he'd been chasing the whole time. And he says, meet him at the diner or call him at the diner or whatever. So he falls asleep in his little car And then finally in the morning, that phone rings and he picks it up and it's her, and they talk for like 2 minutes and basically like, come and see me. She's like, yeah, I'll probably see you tonight. And he's like, no, you won't, and he hangs up and whatever. And he sees her on the plane as he's flying out of Modesto. He sees her driving that Corvette down the road. But
the T-Bird.
T-Bird. I don't know why I keep thinking Corvette.
You're thinking Corvette because you're thinking now of the Loveless.
That's right, man. That's right.
Because you had the Corvette.
Yeah. But yeah, after Harrison Ford crashes his car, and then Steve and John rush down, and John pulls out Harrison Ford out of the car, and Steve pulls out Lori, and she's just like, oh, don't leave me. So he's like, okay, I won't. And Harrison Ford, for whatever reason, his shirt's all unbuttoned and stuff.
It's Harrison Ford, so it's it makes sense.
That's what happens, when you're racing a car and then you crash, all of a sudden your shirt's just open, and but the prerequisite is the fact that you got to be Harrison Ford.
Well, you only have a lap belt if you're lucky on these cars.
But
there's not a whole lot to hold you into these things. Literally, George Lucas almost died in a car accident in the Modesto area. They say that the reason why he survived is because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
I've heard that a lot about that kind of shit. And
yeah, I think in some of those older cars, it's like you were better off not having a seatbelt and being launched from it and not being stuck in there as like the metal came crashing together.
I think one of my favorite parts, especially in this movie, is where Toad, before he meets Debbie, he's just driving around in this car and he's trying to impress people and it's not working out. He's got this idea that this car has just like, it has brought him to a whole nother level amongst his peers, and it did nothing for him. It made the car look worse. And, rather than making him look better, he pulls up to a guy at a light and he's revving his car and whatnot. And kind of like, let's race. And the light turns green, but it only turns green for the people turning. Well, he goes to let off and then realizes, oh, he's not supposed to go. So he backs up and the other guy's laughing at him. And he accidentally backs up too far when the light actually turns green because he didn't put it back in drive. And when he hits the gas, he backs into a car. And the guy's like, I think we've just had an accident. He's like, yeah, well, next time it won't be so lucky for you. And then he just takes off. And, of course, one of the great things about these old cars is, if you back into somebody just a little bit, you're probably fine.
It's going to do nothing.
No, versus now, like if I back into somebody with my car, it's like, oh, dude, they're going to total it.
Yeah, I always just say like the Dukes of Hazzard because like they would just be love tapping each other back and forth as they're just like driving down the road. Like,
this
is what you did.
But yeah, so there's that. Other people, they're like, Toad, is that you in that thing? That poor car? Has to have you in it, But my favorite thing, I think, is where he goes up. It was right after he backs into that guy. He pulls up in front of this car dealership, which, what is this place doing operating at like 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah, because it's so late out. And this dude's sitting in this, there's a giant chair, like novelty chair, and the dude's just sitting in there waiting for somebody to come by.
Oh, man. Yeah, he gets out
creeping.
In the back of the car, and this car salesman comes out. Oh, what a beautiful car you've got there. How about you take a look at one of these? And he's just like, won't shut up. And he's just like, yeah, I don't know. You see, I gotta, well, here's the thing. Yeah. And finally he gets back into the car and the guy's like still going like, here's what I can do for you. He's like, he says something like, would you leave me alone? God damn it. Like,
just jumps in the car and drives off.
But that was like, okay, that's an authentic experience right there. With that car sale. But
except for I just don't expect that to happen at 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
On like a Friday or Saturday, whatever it is.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, what car salesman is going to be there? Which I'm sure a lot of them would definitely like to be if they had the opportunity. But like that's just pretty hilarious and weird, bizarre. But yeah, man, I guess that about covers it for the film. But yeah, it's gosh, I don't know. I think it's really, if you know nothing about the 50s and the 60s, we'll just say the 60s since it's 62 is when this set.
Yeah, it's weird thing. It's 62, but it does feel like the 50s. That's like what it does. I think for the average person, if you didn't see the year, you would go, oh, that must be the 50s. You know what I mean? Because I think people, when they think 60s, they think literally hippie type stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, if you haven't seen anything like that, if you don't know what that whole era is about, the kind of the pioneers of rock and roll, there's a lot of songs in there that I knew listening to, you know what I mean? Like I'm a late life child. My mom's born in like 51, and
Yeah.
you know, her dad, both her parents were her mother's was a camp survivor from Russia, and her dad was from a freaking Okie that was in the army overseas in Germany and whatnot. And well, you get the picture. I mean, she's old, they're old, and all these songs I'm so familiar with from listening to growing up, from either her playing them or her father playing them, and so there's just a lot there that you're like, okay, yeah, this is familiar and whatnot. But I think it'd be really interesting to see a group of, I guess you could say, college students of today who are college student age, not like me, that are, you know, I'd love to see what some of these people would think if they watched this. They'd be like, oh, what the hell is that playing? What is that song? What is it? You know what I mean? But
yeah, because they might be so removed from it and so on. Because that's the same way. It's like I grew up. My mom literally was born in 51 as well too. So like I grew up listening to a lot of pretty much oldies type tunes, classic rock, all that kind of stuff. So I was well versed in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, you know, and I just progressed my way up from there. But yeah, I do kind of wonder because it's one of those ones. This movie was humongous, and I mean, it's probably also because we're in this, you know, Central California area that it had a much bigger impact than probably if you were in like Oklahoma, you know. But at the same time, is like this movie was always one of those ones that was a massive one. I think also because it's tied to Star Wars, no matter what. I always do kind of wonder if George didn't make Star Wars, would American Graffiti have had as long of a lasting appeal? It still was a humongous movie because obviously it was made for like $700 and something thousand, and it made like 160 million plus. You know, probably by this point, you know, it's probably made like $300 million. You know, as international sales and DVDs and VHSs, Blu-rays, all that.
Yeah, no, the budget was $777,000 and the box office was $140 million. Jeez.
Yeah, and that's just the box office because once again you got to think about that doesn't include the VHSs, the rentals, the DVDs, the Blu-rays, all that stuff coming later down the line, the TV stuff.
Here's a question I have. So at the end of the film, you know, after Kurt's flown away and everybody's all happy and whatnot, they say what happened to John, they say what happened to Toad, they said what happened to Kurt. So I thought, oh, these are all real people. No, they weren't. So what the heck was that? Was that just like people that George Lucas knew but didn't give the names for? Or
well, see, because this is what George wanted to happen for that. Because the reason he did that, because it's really weird, because you watch this movie and the whole time you're watching it, it's just a fun hangout, romp, rock and roll, cool cars, you know, gals, guys, you know, dance setting and all this stuff. And then it just has this, like, Kurt takes off to go to college, and it literally has this, like, hard, like, death scene of, like, all these kids. Yeah, John Toad gets killed by a drunk driver. Toad gets missing in action in Vietnam. You know, speaking of which, once again, we
freaking has some stupid office job or some shit.
In Modesto. I'm surprised the Modesto part's not underlined.
in bold in a bigger font.
Yeah, and then of course Kurt himself, he's like, was he like, they say he's like a writer or something in Canada, you know. Something but like the whole point that George was trying to make with this is he wanted to have this because 62, like you shuffle right into like the next couple of years and everything radically changes, and he's like, he wanted that to be like, that's what happened. Life was great and everything like that, and then this radical change of the Vietnam War and all these things kind of happened, and life was never really the same anymore. And that's what that's supposed to be. It seems once again it's very 70s like new Hollywood style like ending to have. And I kind of get like, I know that because George has those other two writers that like helped him out with this and so on. His buddies, I think they're from Modesto as well too. And they even kind of said like, George, are you sure you want this kind of real downer ending all of a sudden after you just had like everybody just had a great old time? And George's like, no. I gotta have this, you know. That's
it. Just at first I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is kind of silly. Like, it made me think like if I, you know, on my Instagram, if I posted a poem or a I don't know, a short clip video, and then at the end of that video I put like David Candido 1990 to 2006, you know, like
yeah, you know. But it was just George's way to explain that, like, that's kind of like how radical, like, the time shifted, you know, is that things were like, it went from being fun and happy, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's serious, you know, because that's the thing. Is George doesn't seem like, on paper, he doesn't seem like the guy who makes these political commentary movies, but that's ironically what all his stuff is.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars itself is supposed to be about the Vietnam War. People sometimes think it's about like World War II, and it's like, no, it's not World War II. It's actually Vietnam. And so the Empire is America, and the rebels are the Vietnamese.
What? That's pretty funny.
So it's like, strangely enough, like George once again is this guy. You know, you feel like he's the Hollywood blockbuster kind of like creation person.
I gotta say, dude, I am a Star Wars fan through and like all through. I mean, obviously, I've got a giant freaking display over there filled with stormtroopers and clone troopers and a lot of Mandalorians and whatnot. But I mean, I clearly love Star Wars. I gotta say though, I don't know if you're a Dune fan at all, but I mean, George Lucas kind of he kind of stole that a little bit, making Star Wars.
Yeah, well, he kind of he went through. He got the Dune, he got the Buck Rogers, he got Flash Gordon, and all that kind of stuff, kind of intermixed in there. The other big one too is the John Carter, Princess of Mars. That one as well too has a lot of those elements, and that's what he does. He you know, he did the same thing that like Tarantino does, where you take all the really good stuff that you like and you filter it down to what's best, and you create your own version out of it.
Fair enough. I'd rather somebody do that than 100% make the same exact movie and then call it something else.
Yeah, you know,
my wife and I talk about it a lot. The necessity of making a movie that's already been made in another country and just making it because you're in another country. You know, like
I always refer to those as the stupid American version. That like, because American couldn't watch a foreign film, so we have to make the stupid American version.
Whereas I feel like as an artist, if you feel like you have a great vision for something, hey, you got every right to do whatever you want to do. However, it's almost like a dick move to say like, you got a good story, but I think I could do it better. You know, like it's almost dishonorable, I guess. But that's it. Like, I guess one of the ones that always comes to mind is Old Boy. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, well, I seen the original one, and then I remember they made like the remake. I was like, weird.
I've seen the original and never saw the remake.
I never saw the remake either. To me, like when I see that stuff, I will say this: I can kind of understand why they do that, because one, that does bring more attention to the original movie. So technically, the original movie will actually get more sales and more exposure because of it. So I'm not opposed to the stupid American versions. It's just I don't. If I've seen the original one, sometimes I don't feel like I need to go out of my way for the other one. I feel it might be a good gateway though for somebody else. So I'm not. That's why I don't think it's a terrible idea.
Well, that's like the Departed. I love that movie. For a long time, it was like one of my favorite movies. And then I found out it was not an original movie, and I was kind of pissed.
Yeah, it's based off. I have like two of the movies. I've been trying to. I have two of them on DVD, and it's like one of those ones because it's like a trilogy. I think that like the. I think they're Chinese movies. I could be wrong. They could be.
I think so. But yeah, the what was it? Like, I really wish that when those films are made. Like the Departed, it's based off another movie from like China. It could be Japan. It's like, would it be so hard that in the opening title sequence, like underneath, based on the movie by, or like whatever, because I just feel like a lot of times they're kind of like they're gonna put it in the credits, usually at the end, like based on or inspired by this guy who actually made the movie first, but it's like as little as possible because it's probably legally required to avoid plagiarism charges or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but give credit where credit is due.
Exactly.
I think back in the day, like, people could take from certain movies because they're like, well, here's the thing, let's be honest, how many people have seen this foreign movie? And I think there's a lot of that time period where it's just
nobody cares, nobody's gonna notice.
I know that like there's that one Akira Kurosawa one, like The Hidden Fortress, that's kind of one of the big inspirations for Star Wars and so on like that. And it has elements in there that you could kind of somewhat see, but it's like I don't feel like you're not going to watch and be like, boy, that seems like samurai Star Wars. No, not necessarily. It just has. I saw where Jar Jar Binks came from. That is 100% where I saw, because there's these two. They're supposed to be. There's these two goofy characters that kind of always follow around. Mifune, the dude who's from he's in like all the samurai pictures of like the 50s and 60s, like, but so he's the main character one, and there's these two pretty much, they're like the R2D2 kind of C3PO. That's where that guy came from. The only thing though is they're almost so obnoxious that like you're kind of like, please get these guys out of here. Like they have way too many scenes. But I know that George probably thought that was the funniest thing ever. That's why like in like Willow, there's like those two little like, you know, like I don't know how you kind of, the little people that pretty much are always, you know, causing havoc and having goofy jokes, and it's like, I know for a fact George keeps working these characters in from the Hidden Fortress all the time. And Jar Jar Binks is just like literally like the epitome of those two characters.
Probably laughing about it right now.
Yeah, what I think there's just certain things that like George just finds hilarious that nobody else does. Nobody else is laughing, but George is just probably like in hysterics.
There's a meme with this kid with a goofy looking freaking laugh on his face. You know, it's like above that it says like having Jar Jar Binks say the line like Misa like in Big Doo Doo or something like that, and the kid's like, oh, that's like, and it says like George Lucas, you know. Who's that stupid kid laughing?
Yeah, so you have that there. So there is those things, but no, I mean, like no matter what, it's like, you know, I get this, like you're going to be inspired by certain stuff. Even this movie, technically, George got the idea of how to like make this movie from, I think it was an Italian movie, where it's about four friends, I think kind of post high school, maybe college, hanging out in their little Italian town and whatnot, you know, and each one had their own kind of individual story, and they all kind of came together. So he did get the core concept, but he just said like, I'm going to do the thing that nobody else has done and talk about the 50s era, the car culture, the rock and roll, so many of these things that I'm really nostalgic for and I really dug. Yeah. And he's kind of like brought that to life. So, you know, I think that's kind of, you have to have those movies where like you almost build off each other and so on. It's different if it's like a straight up, like a straight blatant kind of ripoff, you know what I mean? Where you're like, wow, you just took that same story and just made, you know, almost the same movie off of it, you know? I mean, and even though I like this movie a lot, but like I always think it's still Fast and the Furious. It just has the exact, you know, beat for beat story of Point Break.
Oh, yeah.
Know?
I like them both. I like them both a lot, but
same here. It's like I like both of them.
It's like it makes me ashamed of the dude who made Fast and Furious, like James Wan or something like that.
No. James Wan's the dude like way later. It's Rob Cohen is the one who did the first Fast and Furious. And it's like literally like barely. It's not like literally 10 years later, so it's not even that long. But I was thinking, but speaking of Fast and Furious though, because I was thinking of like if you sort of had like another movie. If you were going to do like another variation of American Graffiti, not necessarily a remake, but you're going to make a different era, use the cars, use the music and stuff. And I was thinking that pretty much the last kind of car culture era was that Fast and the Furious time.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking about that too. It's like, you know, that was such a
the original Fast and the Furious, I gotta say this because nowadays like people get kind of confused because there's so many of them, but like Fast and Furious 1, 2, and 3, like that was the last like era where people like had cool cars, put money into them, modded them, really enjoyed it. I felt like that's like because
it was huge.
Past that point you don't see that
import
anymore.
Tuner scene.
Yeah, the import, like the rice burners, but you'd also take the things too, like you take Volkswagens, you could take Acuras, you could take
it was so big that it, like that first Fast and the Furious especially, like every industry was getting into that because of that. Like video games, Need for Speed Underground. Yep. Like that was like fully customizable. You got these different street racing kind of cars and put all your vinyls on them, colored them, you know, different paint, different tinted windshields, different underglow, different rims, different spoil, like everything was customizable. Nowadays it's not like that at all with cars. I mean, like you're always going to have people that they have their hobbies, they have their interests in that, you know, like there's always going to be somebody who's doing something cool with their car, but it's definitely not like it was and when around the time that movie came out, because, you know, like it really interesting how that happened. But
it's funny because you mentioned that. I remember I had his buddy back in the day, and his dad would have been like that George Lucas age because he was a little bit older and everything like that. So he would have been around because he was like in the cool cars in like the 50s and 60s. He literally got to drive the Munster vehicle to school because he just happened to know the person who like had it and just, like all this kind of stuff.
You say Munster, I thought of Munster cheese.
No, the Dracula vehicle from that. Yeah, not the Munster cheese, but that, as a kid, I had that weird correlation too, because I thought Munster show, Munster cheese. They must be related. There's no other way.
Yeah.
But I remember when Need for Speed Underground came out, and my buddy was customizing his car in game, and he was putting neon lights underneath the car, and the dad had like a mental breakdown. For a guy who was like an old school hot rod person, he was like, I don't get it. What's with the neon lights? What do they do? It's like, the dad, it's a game. He's like, no, there's no reason for them. They make no logical sense. It's just lights underneath there. It doesn't do anything. He could not figure this out. Like, just freaking out because of the lights. And once again, we were playing Need for Speed Underground in the game. We put some neon lights underneath our car, and that was God forbid, like, I guess he's not putting real neon lights underneath the car now.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, in that era, like, you could see the clash of that. But I was kind of thinking, going back to Fast and the Furious, I was sort of, when I was driving around today, I was kind of reimagining that movie as like, what if you would have made Fast and the Furious kind of almost more like American Graffiti? So you take the heist police story out of it instead, and you focused on like the car culture of Los Angeles and, whatever, 2001, and you just did the thing where it's like, it's a bunch of people, it's a bunch of friends hanging out that go to race cars at the drag strip, at nighttime. I almost was kind of digging the idea of that kind of cool movie where it's just Fast and the Furious, but just really like grounded and toned down. And like,
yeah, like if that movie would have taken place, like, I don't know, that first street race they do in that movie, if that would have been like the end of the movie,
yeah, if that was kind of the thing. Up to it. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, what if you had a kind of a cool casual movie, and you just really like focused on the cars a lot more, less on the heist, less on the police stuff, and really just like on people working on their cars in a hangout picture. I'm like, that would have been kind of cool. And I hate to sort of say it, that was the last time period you could have really done that, because I actually think that we were the last generation of people that actually would have any interest in cars. I think past this point, there'll always be that one kid.
Probably just like old Europeans.
Yeah, it's like, there always gonna be the one kid, just like the one kid who'll be in the retro technology or retro music. There's always gonna be somebody. But I thought about it, I'm like, dude, we are probably the last era that there was that were really into cars and anything like that. And from this point on, it kind of ends, This American Graffiti thing might be kind of weird if you looked at it in hindsight, like 50 to 100 years from now, and be like, wow, people were really into their cars back then. That's odd,
Yeah. But yeah, gosh, I guess there's all kinds of places this movie could lead you into. It's iconic and in more ways than one.
It really is. And I will say, it's like, I know that you said that you got a little bit bored in the beginning. I feel that the more I've watched this movie over time, I like it more and more. I think once you kind of, I think with a rewatch might even add to it.
Maybe so, probably, right?
Because now you know the characters, now you know what you're getting into and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I do kind of get it probably just starting off raw. Because the movie just kind of comes in, you're like, where are we? What are we doing? Here's Mel's Diner. Yeah. I've been to a Mel's Diner. Like, So you have that. But if you've never seen American Graffiti before, it is well worth going out of your way to check it out. It's an experience, if anything. If you just want to see history, that's what this movie is. It's history on multiple fronts. It's history as the time, like the 60s, the 50s, all that stuff. But it's also filmmaking history, too, by far. Because you're seeing a lot of stuff here where George Lucas was breaking all the rules, and putting together this kind of, rugged, ragged movie that nobody thought was going to sell well. And Universal was scared and all that stuff. That's why I think people are always scared of what George is going to do. I guess because he made THX right off the bat. That kind of really put fear into people's eyes. It killed the entire Zoetrope studio. So
yeah, no kidding.
We could have had San Francisco Hollywood thanks to George. all that money went sailing. But past that, though, George makes these movies where he just makes gangbusters of money and so on like that. And poor American Graffiti, though, even though as big as it was for so many years, for almost 50 years, this movie was humongous. It is kind of starting to fade away, but you should go out of your way, check it out. If you can, run across one of those Mel's Diners before they close down. You just never know.
For sure.
Those novelty diners, even though I used to always think that Mel's Diner was also tied into this movie. Like, I thought it was one of those things You know, kind of how like there's like the Bubba Gumps like restaurants and so on like that are based off Forrest Gump, which I still always wonder like when are those going to kind of go away? Because you know that's also tied into a certain generation too. You know, but, yeah, you know the Bell's Diners, the drive-ins, all that kind of stuff. You know, in Modesto, sometimes if you even go to the Sonics on a Saturday night, you might be able to see some cool cars there. That still did kind of happen for a while. That happened when I lived down there for a little bit. But yeah, beyond all that good stuff, we had fun with American Graffiti and so on like that. And there's always more American Graffiti. We can see what happens to all these characters in a very artsy way.
Heck yeah.
So, but beyond all that, you can check out more podcasts from Old Man Orange, along with Silent Evil, the survival horror podcast, and of course Via VHS, which does more nostalgic reviews from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Dave Candido.
And we'll see you some other time.